One of the most common arguments I get while trying to teach capitalists about communism is that, oh, but what about human nature, right? It looks great on paper, but in function, right, human nature kicks in, right? But in reality, that's just a fallacy, right? Humans are one of the most adaptive species. We're very adept at problem solving, but unfortunately, the problems that we solve under capitalism are not the problems that we should be solving, right? The problems like world hunger, world peace, right? These things are not even on the table under capitalism because they go against the capitalist framework, right? To solve homelessness or world hunger um, would lower the prices of those needs and shift them from the owning class into the working class. Things that are just not profitable to the richest under capitalism. So instead, capitalism puts forth all these other problems that we have to deal with instead of addressing the root causes of them all, right? So while we're all distracted on these little petty bullshit problems, right, the underlying things that we should be working on just aren't even on the fucking table. Now, tying that into human nature, right, the capitalist framework pushes greed as normal, pushes violence as normal, right? Basically to defend the fortunes that the rich have amassed and let them pass it on to next of kin, unlike under communism where uh, there's no familial wealth. And a lot of people misconstrue communist leaders as dictators and people very power hungry. But, you know, in reality, people like Stalin tried to step down, very much akin to George Washington. And I'm not saying any of these leaders are perfect. In fact, far from it, right? We can't look at history through rose tinted glasses. But we can see where inequalities were lessened. We can see where material conditions improved. And we can look to further and continue ideologies that pursue that. If you put a caveman in today's time since birth, you probably wouldn't even know. That's is the funniest thing. Despite being so propagandized from an early age and conditioned, there are better ways that we should be conditioned, and capitalism isn't it at all. It's literally just allowing the same inequalities from feudalism and the slavery and ideologies before that to persist, right? That's why there hasn't been a redistribution from slavery in the United States. Because the rich, who it benefited, don't fucking want that. I mean, it's going to happen. It has to happen. But that's, again, just a temporary band aid on the way to abolishing familial wealth. Obviously, humans will look for power, but to that end, that is why we have to fight that urge and systemically fight that urge instead of giving those people all the power they could ever ask for through the monetary system. And what that looks like is fighting and abolishing hierarchies, right? The end goal of communism being the abolition of money, state, and class is exactly that fight. You want to keep people from going into power. Well, the only power that that sort of system under communism would offer is being the most knowledgeable or best at a job to the point that they can move the whole industry with inventions and hence having power that actually benefits people instead of stealing from others to be privileged with familial wealth, right? It's a completely different framework of understanding and a completely different framework of power that is honestly just not even thought about under today's realm of capitalism. So to that end, it makes sense that the thought terminating cliche of but human nature falls apart when you actually look at it. But you need the right framework and the right education and understanding to reach the point past that. The point that, well, we need to be able to turn that drive for power to benefit the planet. And there's only one way to do that, and you're not taught it. At least not here in the USA.